atheists! The dangerous lie from atheists is fooling more and more people. And I don't know what it is. This is from Answers in Genesis.
Old things. For many of us, there's just something magical about them. For example, old books make you wonder what life was like back when it was written, and maybe cause you to ponder how many other sets of eyes have glanced at the same pages that you're looking at now.
For our anniversary this last summer, Sarah and I went to a little cabin next to the lake. If you follow us, maybe you saw some of the pictures and stuff. It was real cute. And a little tiny town, and this person wrote a book about the history of the little tiny town. And it was not a very well-written book, but it was written nonetheless. And so I read some of it. And it was probably the first time anyone had cracked that book open in fucking 50 years. But I did. And it was cute. And I do like old books. Please tell me that this isn't going to be old stuff isn't real.
Perhaps an old leather garment that's been broken in by years of wearing, or a well-kept classic car from a bygone era. Or an ancient piece of furniture that's been gently worn in and touched by countless hands over and over again. There's a connectivity to the past that's intrinsic to objects that have been around for so long. Which is why so many of us drop into antique stores.
That's called psychometry or something, right?
Or wander wide-eyed through museums, imagining the stories behind the artifacts that have been, or you hope will be, discovered. And this love of the old has spawned a whole retro genre, which has become so popular that manufacturers and craftsmen are now producing pre-aged products that have the look and feel of an older object, but are in fact brand new. Whether a comfy pair of jeans that have been pre-washed and worn, or even an electric guitar.
Man, we are really, I think we get the point.
Guitar that's been relicked. Yeah, that's the thing. There are many items that we see in this world that sure look old, but simply aren't. And the biggest object that anyone could point to in this regard is the Earth. It's
the biggest object in this regard. I like his accent. This is Answers in Genesis, Canada.
Itself, which many believe to be immensely ancient, but really isn't as old as they've been told.
Fuck. Yeah. 4.5 billion years old. 4.5 billion. That's the age of the Earth. Let's see how far off we are.
And how can I say that?
You see, 3K?
We typically detect age being attached to something because of our...
Typically, young Earth creationists settle on it's 3,000 years old or 10,000.
Our assumptions and prior experiences when we've witnessed or just even imagined specific processes having occurred.
Canadian process. Look at that shit. By the way, this cat's been on stream the whole stream. Just sitting right there doing nothing else. She loves me and her bed.
For example, if I look at a piece of painted wood with a bare spot on it, where it would have been natural for someone to have touched it repeatedly in its daily use, like the handle on a cupboard, for example, I can logically deduce that it must be fairly old because of the number of times it would have taken to remove the paint layer in that area, almost imperceptibly, little by little, through repeated contact over time. Now, I could accomplish the same effect much more quickly by using a piece of steel wool, even though it might still take a little while to wear through the paint. However, if I brought out an electric sander, I could wear out the outer layer in short order, almost instantaneously. And
is this what happened when the flood? Calling it now. When the flood, it did magic to bones.
After some dusting and a little oil, it would have the appearance of being older than it really is. And even though there might be some clues that experts in their respective fields might look for to detect whether something has been aged naturally or rapidly.
Like radiocarbon dating, which is just simply not going to be off. It's just simply true. Radiocarbon dating is just literally, it's definitive.
The effect can be virtually indistinguishable in some cases. A very common question that I've been asked is whether God somehow imbued his creation with the appearance of being old.
So in order to believe in your God, we have to believe he's tricking you? I think it's time to come to terms with the fact that it's just not true.
When in fact, it wasn't. After all, God created trees fully grown and able to produce fruit, and Adam and Eve were created as mature adults. On the other hand, I've also heard critics of a young Earth belief declare that it would have been deceptive for God to have made everything look so old, if it really wasn't. So
that is definitely deceptive.
So the idea of a young Earth just isn't biblical. Of course, they really want to talk about how it would be even more deceptive for God to have declared it to be young, which he did, if he'd really used millions of years to create it. But more on that later.
Billions of years, actually. The imperfect human ape is so stupid. We're just so stupid. We're brilliant too, like relative to the world, but we're just so like delusional. We're just delusional.
However, this whole idea speaks to the difference between a mature creation and something that has experienced the effects of various processes.
All right, hear me out. Hear me the fuck out. Before there was society, before the agricultural revolution, when we're just sitting around and we're tribes or whatever, guys like this still fucking existed, and they were making shit up about the world and being real confident about it, and here we are. Okay? It's always been the same. We tell each other fucking stories, and whoever has the most believable story wins. Or the coolest story, the most interesting story, the most viral story. It's like, it's so silly. Like, when you really understand how materially real the world is, we are such a silly little species. I think it's important to also acknowledge how few people actually get to, like, view humanity accurately like this. So you should feel good. You should feel good about yourself. You're one of the few people in the whole world that, like, can look out on humanity and you see apes that have evolved and co-evolved on this earth and how fucked up and wrong we are about things, but also it's very cool. Nonetheless, it is cool. It's frustrating. You get depressed, but it's not depressing. It's interesting. It's crazy. You're one of these people. You're one of them. Wow. It's definitely frustrating, but it's also amazing. I want to know what else is out there. I never will be able to. We'll never know. I want to witness another society on another planet and just see how they do stuff. Is it always like this? How many outliers are there? Does anyone get it right? I hope that in the universe there are many societies that get it right. And I think there are, just statistically speaking. I think the main question on all these arguments is, why would you argue about believing one over the other? What are you trying to accomplish? I think we should immediately bring that comment to the point and skip all the bullshit. I mean, kind of, yeah. I mean, that's why I like to talk to Christians, because I mean, fundamentally, you're wasting your life, but like worse, you're like harming people around you. When you like, if it was singular delusion like this, and people were just like, yeah, God exists, and there was like 10,000 of them, who cares? I'd still talk to them and be like, look, you're wasting your life, but like they literally want to make the world like this. It's so stupid. It's so pernicious. It's awful. Religion is so bad. It's just so bad.
And or events over time. For example, Adam...
And this is just one little thing. This is just one guy teaching a bunch of people creationism, and although this doesn't have necessarily like anti-human dogma in it, it comes from an anti-human fucking dogma. So they attach creationism with all this other shit. Misogyny and fucking otherism and racism and shit.
Would have had the appearance of a mature man when he was created. Let's say, for argument's sake,
There are cool anarcho-communist aliens that never invented satellites and rockets, and we will never meet them. I'm convinced that the best societies will never be spacefaring in the cosmos. I think it's probably best that way.
5-year-old might look like today. And based on our
radiometric dating. There's lots of different ways. They use methods to detect age. There's like so many of them. Let's see. Oh, this is talking about human age detection. Methods to detect age of artifacts. I don't know. Radiocarbon what are these? Dendrochronology, radioactive decay, stratigraphy, archaeomagnetic dating, geological derived materials, including rocks that contain ferromagnetic materials. Okay, potassium argon dating. Look, I mean, there's like a obsidian hydration. Sure, there's lots of ways to do this.
Experience.
We can have technology without capitalism. Well, I agree. I just think they're probably not. So I don't know. If let's say you have a society that's just chilling and they have all their needs met, I definitely think that from a human perspective, there's something about us that wants to do that. I don't know if that's innate in all creation, right? In all of human-like humanoid creatures or just sapient creatures. I could very much see, you know, how like James Cameron is like the Pandora and they're just fucking vibing on rocks and they're just chilling and then they get colonized and then shit goes tits up. Like, I could see that for real. Like, you could be curious. Maybe they would, but I don't know. I feel like we have a different thing going on with us. I also feel like very much so evolution has made us fucking scared of everything. And so it makes us scared of each other and it makes us want to kill each other and shit. It makes us dangerous to each other. So, like, I don't know. Like, if there's less selection pressure or different organizations of selection pressure, I don't know. Maybe they don't have as many extinction events as the Earth, and maybe the things that exist have less direct competition. I don't know. Like, there's so many variables that can lead to a different culture, and I don't know. I just think there's obviously something wrong with humanity. It involves our fucking capacity for violence, for sure, and our creativity around it. We're particularly evil. Like, we're the only evil creatures on Earth. You know what I mean? It's nuts. And then we like prop ourselves up and we don't acknowledge it and we can't talk about it and we can't stop the evil because it's like impolite or something, but these guys are the fucking evil. Even if this guy doesn't directly murder anybody, like, every single person involved with the church is a victim of it and then a perpetrator of it's causing people to be victims. It's so sick. It's fucked up. And then it leads to like the real sickos. I'm sure that, you know, there's some, the more secular you get, the better you are as a Christian. There's lots of good ones or whatever that aren't with the sicko shit, but like, it's all complicitness. You're all complicit.
With normal human aging processes today, if you or I were to have seen him back then, we might logically conclude that he was in his mid-20s and had experienced that much time having occurred
I'm gonna speed your ass up, dude. For real. This is crazy. Go.
Since he was born.
Jesus fucking Christ. Again? Always.
However, pre-fall, there would be some clues that he was not that old based on our post-fall understanding of genetics. You see, today we live in a sin-cursed world that has corrupted everything, including
a sinner's world that has corrupted everything. It's all magic.
Our DNA. And a primary
This is crazy.
example of this corruption, demonstrated by our visible appearance in relation to our age, is brought about by mutations, genetic spelling errors that occur within our DNA in all of our cells throughout our lives.
Dude, Christians, especially young Earth creationisms, they love the conceptual, like, Adam and Eve had perfect DNA or whatever, so they were gonna live forever. It's like, that's crazy.
As a matter of fact, that's one of the main reasons that even a normal, healthy person will get more saggy and wrinkly and crinkly and eventually die, as mutations accumulate inside each of our cells over the course of our lives, corrupting our original DNA and shortening it each time DNA replicates.
Yeah, and you know how we found that out? Through evolutionary biology. It's so funny how they can pick and choose what fucking stuff they agree with. Like, your cells replicate, you grow, and the way that life works is, we're cellular life, and all the cells that we have, like your skin cells and everything, they have lifespans and break down over time, and there's an act of replacing them, and then your DNA is used. The systems in your body, your genetics, they're like, okay, that skin goes there, and so you got your skin, you got your liver, whatever. You're really a ship of Theseus, chat, but it's not mutation. It's called cellular degradation. He's gonna say mutation, okay? He's gonna say science stuff. The McRib is back. All right, stream's over. I'm going to get a McRib.
Think of mutations in our DNA like the rust accumulating on your car.
Empty chair.
At first, the effects are almost unnoticeable. Then we might see a little bit here and there, but eventually, the rust will overtake the car in its entirety, and it will eventually fail and fall apart. But in the sinless, very good original creation, Adam would have had no such mutations, as his maturely created body would never have felt the effects of them having occurred over time. It's the same reason
he's
he would have had
fucking
a belly button. Think about it. We all have a belly button because we were all attached to our mom at some point through our shared umbilical cord. But Adam never had a mom he was attached to, and didn't have what we would consider a baby's normal growth cycle.
Yeah. So, Trauminator says we need a new kind of Christianity, evolutionary Christianity, and they believe that, like, God created the elegant evolution system. I think that, I know that there are Christians that believe in evolution, not just macroevolution. They're usually Catholics and they're usually dummies. I think that if I think you could fit evolution into the tapestry of being a Christian just fine. And be like, yeah, it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor, God and stuff. But here's where it falls apart and why that doesn't work. Because if evolution is true and Christianity is real, then the story about Adam and Eve that involves creation is false, because the evidence does not suggest that Adam and Eve existed. It would be, as humans, they often go to like genetic Adam and Eve, right? Whatever that means. It's like a cell or something. I don't know. And so that means that original sin isn't a thing, because, that's not a human being falling in sin or whatever, even though obviously Eve eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil isn't even a sin anyway, because she doesn't know what good and evil is before she eats of it, so she can't be held accountable. And God made that situation happen. He knew everything that was going to happen. Anyway, if you don't have original sin, you don't need Jesus to die for you, because you could just live sinless lives. You just don't need him to, because the original sin is the one that they're like, well, even if you got to get baptized still, because that's your original sin. You got to wash off you. And it's real stupid. You see how they just get you no matter what? It's pretty weird. So anyway, evolution isn't tenable with the religion because of original sin, if you think about it for 2 seconds, or I guess 5.
He was created instantaneously and never experienced those events. It's the same reason the original mature trees God created wouldn't have had tree rings, as these rings are brought about by varying cell growth rates linked to seasonal temperature changes that trees in temperate regions experience over their...
So they wouldn't have had tree rings. So I'm pretty confident that we have trees older than this guy. Oldest trees. List of oldest trees. I know that for sure there's going to be some... Pando, a colony of quaking aspen. How old is Pando? 14,000 to 18,000 years old. So if you don't know, they also won't tell you exactly where it's at. It's somewhere in Utah. Aspen trees are one organism, and it's really cool. So the oldest trees are older than, his Earth. Prometheus, this tree is 5,000 years old. Where's it at? Where's this fucking tree at? Prometheus? Where is it gone? Is it gone now? Was a living member? Why are you saying in the past tense? In the 1950s, they were trying to find the oldest living tree species. They intended to analyze the rings for various research purposes. The stump! They cut it! Of course. Anyway, so by the way, humans are bad. Humans are bad and they suck. At least they fucking did it on accident. Ugh. The 50s. Anyway, old trees are old. I was thinking of Methuselah, which still exists somewhere, right? Methuselah. Look at that fucking tree. That's an old-ass tree. California. Anywho, they hide the location of these sacred trees now.
Their lifetimes. But trees created within a day would never have experienced those types of events. For God to have placed
so those have rings anyway. As you can see, that when they murdered the tree, it had rings. This guy's wrong.
Rings inside the...
So... if you're a Christian, what does that do to you, right? Do you just go, nuh-uh? Like, what is it?
Trees, when the specific processes and effects in history had never happened, would make God seem deceitful, which he isn't. Considering all that we've discussed, when people say that they believe the Earth looks old, what they're typically doing is allowing presuppositions regarding processes, whether imagined...
Yeah, no presupposition about God existing, that's for sure. There's no presupposition. No one's saying it looks old. They're saying the evidence shows and demonstrates that the Earth is old. It's not like it looks... We're not like it's going, I don't know, it looks kind of old. You could, I guess, intuit that if you wanted. But I mean, who's to say? I'm sure you could add... I'm sure God is capable of adding patina to things. You know what else he did? He created insurmountable evidence against his existence. So he's either a tricky guy, which I don't think is what you're describing, and I don't think makes any sense, or he doesn't exist. And I think, evidence suggests that there is no God, and that's okay. I think you can get over it. It'll be just fine. This guy won't, though. This guy's brain is fucking cooked. Star Troopy, thanks for following, dude.
Or observe to influence their conclusions. So, for example, if we see a canyon with a river running through it that's slowly eroding a valley, removing and depositing only minute quantities of sediment each year, then most people would logically assume it would have taken millions of years to erode even larger canyons, such as the Grand Canyon, or, as another example.
But it's not, they're not extrapolating Like, it might start with that hypothesis, and then they tested that hypothesis, and it was proven true over and over and over and over and over. People test this constantly and to check.
If we measure sediments accumulating at the bottom of a lake at a rate of 1 or 2 layers per year, then assuming a constant rate of them accruing, combined with the idea that these sediments might eventually
They don't assume it. They check. They dig and they look.
dry out later and become hard, it might be natural to assume that massive sedimentary rock layers with thousands upon thousands of fine layers may have taken millions of years to form. However, just like the example of using an electric sander versus thousands of individual touches from someone's hand, we must remember that we can't automatically assume what process accomplished the result we're observing.
The process of creating a layer of hard rock sediment? We actually can. Wait, we actually can. They have math to understand a layer's, like a layer of strata, or in what it's made of, its compactness, what type of shit it is. They can see the climate around it. They can do tests to determine what was happening. They can see what kind of stuff is dying on that layer. They can do a million different things. They know how long it took. They can use corroborating evidence to check, and they can. It's crazy. Creationism just literally dumps your brain out.
Today. You see, when someone says to me that they think that the Earth looks old, I respond by saying, I think it looks devastated. I think it looks like it's been run through the ringer, so to speak, and has been deluged and destroyed in the past. I believe that because the Word of God says that's what happened in the past, in Genesis 6-9, in the historical account of Noah's flood. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep, and all flesh died that moved on the earth. Birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all.
So, there's been an argument against this for a while, which is called like the heat problem. And they've run the math. Many people have run the math on what the claims of the like firmament breaking, and then the underwater fountains, and then the rate at which the water level rose throughout the planet and everything. The amount of like friction and energy released all at once, even though it's water, would vaporize the Earth. It completely vaporized, hotter than the surface of the sun. It's just not possible. Super, super amazing. It wouldn't have it wouldn't have made a funny layer of sediment. It would have vaporized everything. It's called the heat problem. Yeah.
All mankind. Everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. Genesis 7, verses 18 to 23. When I look around the world and see the evidence, everything I observe corroborates that account.
It doesn't, though. When he looks around, he's like, that seems corroborative. And it's not. It isn't.
I observe is a record of rapid deposition of sediments and fossils that must have been formed very quickly. I also see examples of what Psalm 104, 6-9 mentions, land features that are evidence of rapid erosion occurring when massive amounts of water scoured the earth as it drained off rapidly rising continents.
Drained off? To where? Huh? I don't think you understand. So to cover the globe so that all mountains, which we have to use Everest as our all mountains, by 15 cubits, which is, let me tell you, a lot. 15 cubits. Yeah, but how much is it? How long is 15 cubits? 22 feet. So that water doesn't have anywhere to go, buddy. That's more water than we have on the earth right now. By probably fucking many magnitudes of order, because we're talking about like a expanding sphere of water, so it's way more than you think even, into the hollow earth. So it just didn't occur.
You covered it with the deep, as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At your rebuke, they fled. At the sound of your thunder, they took to flight. The mountains rose, the valleys sank down to the place that you appointed for them. You set a boundary that they may not pass.
Why is he playing like Civil War music? It's like not a banjo. What is that?
So that they might not again cover the earth.
Quite a violin.
When it comes to how old people believe the earth looks, a main point to consider is that the layers of fossil-bearing rock found all over the world are either the results of millions of years of slow geologic processes, or the much more rapid result of a year-long global flood. So either a vast amount...
They're not either or. They're one of them. It's slow geologic processes. It's pretty obvious. We could just watch it happen.
of time has elapsed since the Earth was formed, or else a major geological catastrophe has taken place. The first view has been described as uniformitarianism, which is often summed up by its catchphrase, "The present is the key to the past." This is the idea that we should view history through the lens of whatever slow and steady processes that we can observe today, having always operated at that rate.
No. We look for evidence. If we had found evidence of a flood, we'd be like, shit, there was a fucking global flood. Here's the fucking layer. You could see it all across the world. What fucking happened, dude? That would be crazy. That'd be interesting. What fucking happened? Where was that civilization, dude? Where'd the water come from? It would be cool. My guess? Water steroid. Water comet. Whoa.
The second view, of course, is the biblical idea of a worldwide catastrophic flood that would have rapidly buried creatures not on board the ark God commanded Noah to build.
Buried them?
So, which history do the facts we observe fit best? Well, the idea that fossils, including trees over 30 feet tall, could be buried, permineralized, and slowly transformed into rock.
Yeah, so you see how that's on like a fucking fault line? You see right there?
Makes absolutely no sense, which even evolutionary geologists such as Derek Eger have admitted. If one estimates the total
Derek Eger?
thickness of the British coal measures as about 1,000 meters, laid down in about 10 million years, then assuming a constant rate of sedimentation, it would have taken 100,000 years to bury a tree 10 meters high, which is ridiculous.
What? Coal?
I have completely unchained my banhammer.
I'm so over this guy. I mean, you guys might be able to.
The fact is, most living things decay.
You can try to parachute out.
And some fossil organisms that have been found exquisitely preserved, like jellyfish and octopus, would have liquefied into a slimy ball and fallen apart within hours. So rapid burial makes.
What? It totally depends on what they die in.
Makes the most sense in the fossil graveyards we see worldwide. And there are imprints of delicate footprints made by birds you would normally see when visiting the local beach that are preserved in rocks all over the world. And yet today, those same footprints vanish quickly when either the next set of waves wash over them or the wind and or rain erases them like chalk from a board.
I thought you'd... Hold on, wait. You just said 1 second ago that you can't use processes you see today to tell us how stuff works in the past. Well, my suspicion is that there were no waves, in fact, that washed up on those particular footprints for whatever reason. Could have been a million different things. All you have to do is keep the water off, or better yet, it was filled in with something that preserved the shape of it and kept it there for a while. You know, could have happened. Maybe even the foot itself.
So rapid rock formation under specific conditions at the time of the flood also makes better sense of these facts.
It doesn't make a better sense at all of these facts. There's no evidence to suggest that there are flood rocks that formed real quickly in the flood. Real soft, porous rocks.
We've also observed the rapid formation of rock layers occurring in real time, such as over 600 feet of rock rapidly accumulating as a result of the 1980 and subsequent eruptions at Mount St. Helens. Over 16 feet of
rock.
Fine sedimentary layers were observed laid down in only 3 hours during one of those events. And in a similar rapid fashion, a canyon system over 100 feet deep was carved into a portion of those deposits by a later mudflow just 2 years later in 1982, resulting in a canyon approximately 1/40th the scale of Grand Canyon, which is...
This isn't like solid rock, though. Like, you could go up to it and it would just start to fucking crumble.
Still massive. And yet, if the event had not been observed and recorded, most people coming upon it for the first time, based on what they've been taught about how long such features are formed, would assume it must have occurred through slow and steady processes over very long periods.
They might assume it, and then they would test it, and they'd be like, "Oh, it was one volcanic fucking moment." They could literally test this. This is a known occurrence around volcanoes, because guess what volcanoes do? They shoot shit into the fucking air around them. Those are actually stone golems drinking the ocean water. Oh, fuck. You got it.
Most would look at it and just say, well, it just looks really old.
There was a guy that wanted to talk to me about the fucking Shroud of Turin, I guess. Do you know that? Guy wants to talk to me about the Shroud of Turin. Known hoax, Shroud of Turin.
Have a fantastic day.
Another startling example of something looking old that isn't is an entire island off the southern coast of Iceland called Surtsey, which was born on November 14th, 1963, just 3 years before I was born. On that day, some Icelandic fishermen noticed a column of smoke billowing out of the open ocean, and within a day, this new volcanic island came into existence. What blew most people's minds was the rapidity of Surtsey's ecological maturation, which was incredibly fast and completely unexpected by most scientists. Within 2 years, it was already sprouting over 50 species of vegetation, had insects crawling all over it, and was being visited by all sorts of migratory birds and even seals.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? And if they test to see when that was there, they'll be like, oh, it was a volcanic activity that made that. The world is super fucking cool. It is! It poops islands sometimes.
Not only was Surtsey's sudden ecology a surprise, but its physical appearance obviously wasn't what was expected by most, which is highlighted by this quote from a National Geographic article discussing the smoothly shaped rocks that are typically said to have been rounded from more jagged pieces and shaped over long periods of time. Boulders on Iceland's Surtsey Island may look old, but they are actually as young as the island itself, which was born after volcanic eruptions on November 14, 1963. Did you catch it?
They might look old. Did you catch it? Wow, he really does not expect much mental speed from his fucking viewership, huh?
They may look old, but they're not. They look like they were subject to a slow and steady process that shaped them little by little over millennia. But they were...
Do they? They look like fucking volcanic rocks. They're porous.
Actually less than 2 years old at the time of that quote. You see, when you think it through carefully, there's absolutely no reason to believe the Earth isn't as old as the Bible clearly teaches, approximately 6,000 years old.
Ooh, 6,000. Nice.
And by the way, for those who say the Bible doesn't speak to the age of the Earth, that figure is easy to calculate by simply adding up the time from creation to the present day. By adding up...
Oh my God. We're getting a creationism reverse course.
The Old Testament chronogenealogies, we can see there were approximately 2,000 years from creation.
Chronogenealogies. Yeah, I guess they are chronogenealogies, aren't they?
To when Abraham lived. And by adding up the time between Abraham to when Jesus was here doing his earthly ministry, we add another approximate 2,000 years. And when you add up the time from then to now, we have another 2,000 years, which is where we get the approximate 6,000 year total. However, the story of evolution and its required
666. I don't know. Seems like satanic gobbledygook to me. Eric C. Giving one a midweek gold.
Idea of millions of years of Earth history has captured the minds of most people
trying
in the
to get
West
us started
due to the state-run education systems that the majority of young minds are subject to. And this should come as no surprise to those who read the Bible. You see, there's a prophecy in 2 Peter 3 that makes it clear that in the last days, people will arise that will not only deny that God created the earth covered in water, but also that he then destroyed the earth by water via the cataclysmic global flood described.
All right, so there's no evidence of it, though, you know?
In Genesis 6-9. It reads, knowing this first of all, that scoffers will come in the last days with scoffing, following...
Scoffers and their scoffing. So they thought the last days were them. They thought that they were them. That they were going to see Jesus come back in their lifetime. Let's run from this dude? I don't know.
Their own sinful desires. They will say, where's the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all things are continuing as they were from the beginning of creation. For they deliberately overlooked this fact, that the heavens existed long ago, and the earth was formed out of water and through water by the word of God. And by means of these, the world that then existed was deluged with water and perished. But by the same word, the heavens and earth that now exist are stored up for fire, being kept until the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly. 2 Peter 3.
Damn. So, he was really on some, like, the earth is made of the 4 elements shit.
3 verses 3 to 7. Do you see it? All things are continuing as they were from the beginning. This is the entire the present is the key to the past idea in a nutshell, that present-day geologic processes have always operated at the snail's pace we observe today, and that they can explain how rock layers and fossils formed and therefore determine how old the earth is. It just looks so old.
Yeah, you kind of have to couch, like, geology and any other sciences you could put towards determining the age of the earth. You have to couch it in they're just like looking at stuff and making assumptions rather than like measuring data and then finding a conclusion after the fact. It's you have to misrepresent science in order to be a creationist.
But again, the earth doesn't look old, it just looks like it's a devastated relic of its former self. Evidence of God having judged humanity in the past, which should cause us to consider the truth claims of his word and the reality of the coming judgment for all of us. Many people today are using the story of evolution as a reason to reject the truth of God's word, but none of those excuses will stand. We're reminded every day when we look in the mirror that we're indeed getting older, just one step closer to us standing in God's courtroom where
Jesus Christ, he's just like, I'm old, I'm scared.
We'll be judged for our actions according to God's standards, not man's. And we'll either...
I think it's sad that you just like worry about judgment all the time.
Be held guilty for our sin that we've willingly committed, or stand in the grace of our Savior, Jesus Christ. As Psalm 103, verses 15 to 17 reminds
Teach
us,
me,
as for man, his
Daddy.
days are like grass. He flourishes like a flower of the field. For the wind passes over it, and it is gone, and its
you,
place
dude.
knows it no more. But the steadfast love of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear him.
Bible quote. That's us owned. I'm converted. I don't believe in science anymore because this guy doesn't like it. Smart. I wouldn't either. Yeah. The world has been abandoned by God, that is for sure.